Hello and welcome to a brief presentation of the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Very short introduction to this poem, which so much owes to the medieval ballad. Let's find out, or let's revise, the characteristics of medieval ballads. The medieval ballad was a story in verse. It actually told a real story, an actual story. It was a story that had a universal appeal. It spoke about love, about passions, about magic, about the outlaws. It featured a simple language, and it usually started in medias res. It had an abrupt opening and as well as an abrupt ending, or actually unexpected. It didn't waste time with superfluous details, and it was usually told in the form of a dialogue. Because it was mainly an oral genre, it was characterized by repetition by means of a refrain or stock phrases that the audience of the time could recognize. And it had a very simple ABCB rhyme scheme that it usually followed. Because it was meant to appeal to simple people, very often it featured a supernatural element, and basically it was simple in structure, in style and diction. It was oral. There was nothing written in the medieval ballad. Literary ballads, instead, were different, but also similar. It's up to you to find out after we have read the Rime of the Ancient Mariner. As for the rhyme, which is now introduced by a picture of Bob Dylan and Joan Baez, famous modern ballad writers and singers, we know that it was published in 1798 in Lyrical Ballads. Lyrical Ballad is a collection of poems. It is, the rhyme is Coleridge's main contribution to that collection, together with a couple of other poems. The collection was written together with Wordsworth. The two were quite good friends. They lived in the same neighborhood for some time. And they actually decided to divide their task in the lyrical ballads. Wordsworth was going to write about simple situations, about simple events, presenting them in such a way that they became supernatural, exceptional. Coleridge, instead, was to write about supernatural situations and supernatural events, but he was to give them the semblance, as he said, of truth. So readers at some point may want to believe they were true. Readers, were meant to practice the so-called willing suspension of disbelief. Coleridge asked his readers to suspend, to stop their disbelief, to stop not believing, and to start or to allow him to tell them a story that they could eventually believe in. The rhyme is a story that we're going to deal with in a nutshell here. It's the story of a young man who one day he's stopped by an old sailor. The young man is on his way to a wedding. He wants to go to the wedding so bad, but the old sailor stops him and somehow obliges him to listen to his story. And this is the story. One day a ship leaves on a sea voyage. It's the old sailor's ship. Everything goes well until a storm, a very strong one, drives the ship south into the polar regions, where they are stuck in the middle of a land of ice, until eventually an albatross shows up and guides the ship back north. The weather goes back to normal and the ship is doing fine. The old sailor, however, suddenly decides to kill the albatross, And what follows is a series of terrible and supernatural events that we're going to look into by reading the original text. Actually, it's up to us to find out what happens later. And we are going to find this out in a few excerpts. The ballad is actually divided into 7 parts, and we're going to read the following excerpt. Part 1, taken from your textbook. Part 2, taken from the text store, the digital text store of your textbook. A short extract from Part 4, taken again from the digital store, and the end of the ballad, which is also the end of Part 7, in print in your textbook. I do hope you'll enjoy this.